Welcome to the Grab Another Gear Sessions. I'm Wayne Williams, and today I'm going to be sharing a little about my background as a business leader who was forced to face turbulent times on several occasions and my experience weathering those storms. I hope these stories I share in each session can help equip you with tools and tactics to overcome the challenges you face ahead. I'm Wayne Williams, former CEO and president of Telect, headquartered in Liberty Lake, Washington. Just wanted to share a little bit on this day and in this session about what I'm feeling right now that all business leaders, men and women, are going through after this COVID-19 pandemic is now impacting our region. I'm headquartered out of Liberty Lake, Washington today, and I'm no longer working and leading Telect. However, I was part of that company since the day we started in 1982 and until we had an exit in July of 2017, a successful exit, but it wasn't without going through lots of difficulties. Those difficulties we dealt with the recession when we first started to 6 different technology transitions. We also went through the dotcom bust with a failed IPO that I was leading a successful team at the time. And following that, we went through the 07-08 real estate crash. And it added so much intensity during that time. So you can imagine starting from 1982 through 2000, I felt like anything that me and the team and our family as part of this family private business that we're touching turned to gold. And then one day, we had what I would call our first cataclysmic event that we're dealing with today in a different way. But that event was the dot-com bust. So I was 13 days away from filing and pricing on an IPO, and we had just added around 1,100 employees in 2000. And when we added those employees, we were just, my belief, I love people and I cared about them. And that growth was an insatiable growth. We went through 45% compounded growth over 5 years. And in the year 2000, 70% growth. And following that growth on the day before Thanksgiving in 2000, just praying for a door to be open and closed with the IPO. We were kind of like the last ones on the road show. Felt like the door was closed or postponed, and we all thought we'd finish our first quarter out during that year, which would have been the fourth quarter 2000. And what ended up happening was it wasn't just postponed. Around December 5th of that year was kind of our D-Day when we knew that the supply chain behind us was like a 10-mile long railroad set of railroad cars filled with lots of supply coming in, and we saw we just had too much supply coming in because the market was beginning to collapse. And that dot-com bust was tough because I went through that 70% growth that year, and subsequently my story really began in growth in the 24 months that followed, and that was a 70% decline in the market, taking it down to $60 million in revenue, having 2,300 employees with our team, and taking that down to 500 employees, and it was painful. It was lonely. There were times that I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning, and it's a tough time to lead when you're lonely. You're trying to figure out, how do I describe things to my family? How do I describe to my employees? How do I communicate to my board? How do I communicate to my leadership team? And when you're having to make rapid survival decisions in a time where an event so impactful can take place, and with not a lot of people to talk to, I get that. And right now I know that there's men and women out there running a business that when Friday the 13th here in Spokane, Washington, it kind of felt like it was the end of the world. And we know we're supposed to keep social distancing with COVID-19 right now, which I believe there's people much smarter than me in and around the medical side of this that are dealing with this virus. We all have a common enemy, and so there's no longer something that we can put together and go, hey, if we advertise this way or we promote this way or get on the phone and talk to a customer this way, we're not going to see a revenue stream actually change at all right now. We could be running on thin margins right now in our businesses, and it's just by the, every day just trying to hang on in this time of insatiable growth that we've been seeing, much like we saw back in 2000. And what you're going to end up feeling right now is this idea, what next? And so there's this idea of being shell-shocked, and I felt that shell-shocking, and I didn't just feel it one time. So the first time was that first layoff back in 2001. And the reason we had to go through the layoff is we felt like that the supply chain was drying up. And we're seeing right now customers out there that they're not buying anymore from businesses, and people are wondering, hey, how am I going to survive? And so that was my first experience through that. I went through 17 layoffs over 24 months and looked people in the eyes face to face to say that they're no longer part of our team in order to restore and keep the team that was left together. And I had to negotiate with some banks to work through our debt structure. We almost took in private equity and did not. We almost sold a couple of times to survive during that time and did not. And I felt like it was the proverbial biblical example of Abraham offering up Isaac for a sacrifice, and I had to do that multiple times in the business, quietly doing that in time of solitude and silence, and sometimes in isolation, which I didn't want to be in, only to have it delivered back to me that this is not the right time. We were fortunate enough in July of 2017 to have a successful exit after going through, in that 17-year period, if you will, 6 operational closures from Shanghai to Poland to the UK to Brazil to Plano, Texas, and retrenched back to Spokane, Washington, in this region. And we had dealt with just some really, really tough stuff. So my desire to share with you in the upcoming sessions is really to help provide salve, if you will, or antibiotics to the cuts and sores that you have right now as men and women that are business leaders, whether it's in retail, it's in manufacturing, it's in distribution, it's in transportation, to offer some solutions that can give you some peace during this time, and also challenge you in a real wild way, because it's time to grab some different gears. And I look at that model as we've been running in 4th and 5th gear on the road for quite some time with very little disturbance, and all of a sudden we're told we have to stop and we're going to run out of fuel tomorrow, and it requires a real shift. And it's better to be fast to make decisions right now, but there's an adage in auto racing when you come up into turn 1, and it's better to be slow in and fast out than it is to be fast in and dead out. And so my goal through these sessions and through the Grab Another Gear podcast is to be able to have discussions, some heartfelt discussions, some discussions to pull people out of their area of isolation right now, to be able to share insights and ideas and concepts that are relevant today. They were relevant for us yesterday, and to begin to offer some real challenges to a mindset, and as we kind of walk through this new journey together. So the goal for me, I had a board member once, Samuel Hayes, the third professor at Harvard Business School in my OPM program, and also served on my board for a number of years. And he went right alongside of me through this, as a few other board members did, and employees had. And he said, Wayne, at times like this, when you're going through it, you have to figure out a way to turn these scars into stars. And my goal right now, and the purpose for this, is that I can help and assist each one of you as you feel wounded during this time, you feel ill-equipped maybe in some areas to do that we begin to heal up those scars that you have right now so that you can carry this in and turn your business and your leadership skill sets into stars for tomorrow. I would say, my final message in this time in this podcast is that very few of us back in the day of the dot-com bust, I was one of the blessed. And what I mean by blessed is that if you were in a public company at the time of the dot-com bust, very few executives and executive teams were able to stay on board during the time to regroup and the time to work through survival. Many of them were blamed for the failure itself of this insatiable demand for bandwidth that never came about. And so they didn't have an opportunity to work through some of the tough stuff. I would say the benefit that each of you have right now is to begin to develop some strength and work through the tough stuff, because we're working through it together. We're working through it at a time right now where the differentiation, our competitor is no longer our enemy. There will be competitors that fall. There will be businesses that fail. And during this growth right now, that you're going to be setting an example for your children and your children's children 10 to 20 years from now, because this virus will be attacked. We will develop a vaccine, as we have proven for many, many years, all the way influenza to polio to Ebola to so many different types of physical harm that come to us with viruses before. I do believe we're going to encounter this, but we need to be prepared because there will be something different in our future. And if we don't start building scars and building strength and quit coasting, as I believe that we really have in some time, we're going to all fail together. So this is it's such a time as this, if you will. As the great Tommy Lasorda from the Los Angeles Dodgers said, there are people that make things happen, people that things happen to, and people that stand around and wonder what happened. I'm choosing my moment to this day to help you because I want to make things happen. I don't want to be the person that stands around and wonders what happened or that lets things happen to me right now. I want to utilize the skills and gifts that God's given me for this time to help you. And I'm hopeful that, and I know that there are other people out there that I'm looking forward to potentially having in as guests, maybe with some social distancing to start out with, but having in as guests that they can share and help you be a better leader during this time. So where are we going with this? Grab Another Gear has been a kind of part of my mantra for almost 2 decades. And I'll share a little bit about how that came about with a close friend of mine from the past. But the most important thing right now is to begin to shift. And I mentioned 4th and 5th gear that we've been kind of coasting in for a while. And we've lost practice, that practice of shifting and moving into a different state right now. So our first session that we'll be covering here shortly will be this idea of shifting from the P&L statement, the profit and loss statement, to the daily cash flow. The most important aspect right now of you getting an eye on the dashboard of what you're running, which is your business, and then having people start to manage in and around a cash flow statement so that you can understand your inflows and outflows very, very quickly, and let you as the leader move your eyes out of the dash up through the windshield out in front so you can begin to spend time taking your business to where you want it to go during this time. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you in our next session. Thank you for listening to the Grab Another Gear sessions. Join me next session for more stories and experiences that may help you overcome your next challenge.